My name is Hakeem Brown. 19 men hijacked 4 fuel-loaded U.S. commercial airplanes bound for West Coast destinations. A total of 2,977 people were killed in New York City, Washington City, and outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The attack was orchestrated by Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. This is Remembering 9/11.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother. Welcome to the most listened to international podcast around the world. Hakeem and Reggie Brown are two young African-American boys speaking the truth. This is Pop City Culture.
What up, everybody? This is Reggie Brown, and welcome to Pop City Culture.
That's right. That's right, Reggie. And today, we are remembering 9/11.
That's right. 9/11 was a tragedy, man. That happened. Oh, my God. That was such a tragedy on American soil. So many lives were taken that way unnecessarily. It's just awful.
That's right, Reggie. It was one of America's most horrible days in history. Dad told us a whole lot of stuff about what happened then when we are remembering 9/11.
Horrible day. Horrible. And I tell you, that's something we should never have to go through again.
I agree with you, Reggie. It was very, very bad.
I remember what Dad told us he was doing that day. He said he had woken up and he was working on his computer on some stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And then his mom called and said a plane had just crashed into the World Trade Center. And my dad, he was just couldn't believe it. He didn't think anything like that was possible.
Agreed.
But he turned the news on.
That's right.
Even though he wasn't watching it, he was still on his computer. And he could hear the news people talk about what was going on. And then he turned around and he said that's when he saw the second plane hit the building. And he said he was shocked. He had never seen nothing like that in his life.
Terrible.
He said it was so horrible. And that day was forever seared in his memory, he said.
Oh, man, I can't even imagine. We weren't even born yet, and we still hear stuff. We can see stuff on social media because there's a whole lot of videos, too. But, every year, they always talk about 9/11, and they always have memorial stuff going on. You know, Hakeem?
Yeah, I know. And, Dad he really makes sure that we try to watch that, too, because he thinks it's very, very important. When we go to school, a lot of teachers told us on that day what happened. And we can tell that it was something that really affected them because everybody, and I mean everybody, was affected by 9/11 on that day. And we still are, because you never think something like that could ever happen on American soil.
No, you never do.
You always think it would happen somewhere else. But on American soil, it was just unbelievable.
So, Hakeem, you got to say again, what happened?
Well, what happened was, on September 11th, 2001, 19 men hijacked 4 fuel-loaded U.S. commercial airplanes bound for West Coast destinations. And, almost 3,000 people were killed in New York City.
Oh, my God.
In Washington, D.C., and outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And it was all under the leadership of Osama bin Laden. And, there is a timeline.
Well, what is it?
On September 11th, 2001, 8:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, American Airlines Flight 11, traveling from Boston to Los Angeles, strikes the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. 9:03, United Airlines Flight 175, traveling from Boston to LA, strikes the South Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. 9:37, American Airlines Flight 77, traveling from Dulles, Virginia to Los Angeles, strikes the Pentagon building in Washington.
What is wrong with these people?
And at 9:59, South Tower of the World Trade Center collapses in approximately 10 seconds.
Man, I'm just shaking my head.
So, and the other one was 10:03, United Airlines Flight 93, traveling from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco crashed in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. This was very horrible.
Sure
And
was.
the one that crashed, I think, in the field, that's when the people on board, rushed the cockpit. And they are heroes, they knew what was happening and they didn't want anything bad to happen to anybody else. They're just heroes. My dad said those were the biggest heroes he's ever, the bravest too. I mean, I couldn't even imagine it. So many people, so many families were affected that day.
Yeah, I know. That was a sad day, man. I tell you. I see videos on social media, and it's just terrible. I mean, I can still feel it. Hakeem, I can still feel the pain of that day just from watching it. I mean, I just can't understand how there's so much hate in the world that people can do something like this to hurt other people. It just don't make no sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Reggie, I know what you mean. But, let me tell you something. There are a lot of facts about 9/11 too, as well.
What you got? I gotta hear this.
On September 11th, 2001, nearly 3,000 people were killed, but 400 were police officers and firefighters in a terrorist attack at the World Trade Center in New
Say
York,
what?
at the Pentagon building in D.C., and in a plane crash near Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
Oh man, oh man. Police officers and firefighters too. Oh my God, that's like, oh my God. That breaks my heart, man. I just can't believe it, man.
Yeah, it's true. And that, you would always think that the first responders, I mean, those people are brave. They actually go in there towards the danger to try to save people. And even in the World Trade Center,
I do now.
firemen were going in there trying to rescue people, trying to save as many lives as they could.
Heroes, man.
And they knew there was a possibility that they were going to not come back and see their families. But these brave first responders went in there and they saved people,
Man, they be some brave people.
On 9/11 was not the first terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. I don't know if you know that.
No, Hakeem, I didn't know that.
A bombing in February of 1993 killed 6 people.
6 people, Hakeem. I never heard of this. How come I didn't hear of this?
I don't really know exactly what happened on that day, but
Apparently, some more terrible people did the same thing. I just don't understand why we weren't prepared this time. Man, this just breaks my heart again. You know what I mean, Hakeem?
I know, Reggie, but listen to this. Another fact is on any given workday, up to 50,000 employees worked in the World Trade Center's towers, and an additional 40,000 passed through the complex. I mean, those are so many people. 50,000 employees worked in the World Trade Center. And, I'm just amazed. God was definitely with everybody on that day, because that.
My God, I know what you mean. I can't imagine if it could have been worse. It sounds like it could have been a whole lot worse.
Yes, Reggie, it could have been a lot worse, but it was, just losing one life is really bad. It's just terrible. And after September 11th attack on the World Trade Center, the rescue and recovery cleanup of the 1.8 million ton wreckage from the World Trade Center site, it took 9 months to clean it up.
9 months? Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, and they have a lot of pictures.
Well, I would hope so.
It was really terrible. I mean, that's a huge structure. I don't know how long it took to put the building up, but that's a lot of wreckage, to get rid of. And 9 months, it's like, oh my God, and New York City, and knowing that there's so much traffic, but that was terrible. And let me tell you something else. Passengers, I think I mentioned this, passengers aboard United Flight 93 heard about the previous airplane attacks and attempted to retake control of the plane from the hijackers. As a result, the hijackers deliberately crashed the plane in a Pennsylvania field instead of their unknown target. So, those were the heroes I was talking about.
They sure are.
They definitely, you know, it's just, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. I don't know. I just, those are some brave people. Those are.
Well, don't say nothing. Just move on to what we're.
While video accounts of the World Trade Center attack aired immediately, I don't know if you know this, Reggie, but there was no footage of the Pentagon attack.
Say what?
And it was publicly released. It wasn't publicly released until 2006.
Man, why'd it take so long? That doesn't make any sense. If, it didn't get released till 2006.
Well, yeah, this is the Pentagon. That's like a real huge government agency. So maybe they wanted to look at the footage or something like that. But
something don't make no sense.
That's just one of the facts about what happened.
What else you got?
Though both the police and fire departments of New York City had their own emergency response procedures, the two departments did not have a coordinated response plan to the major incident.
Really? That's why. Well, why not?
Well, Reggie, nobody plans on stuff like this. Nobody even knew something like this could have even been possible. I mean, who sits there and dreams of stuff like this? That's not how we think in America, And in fact, they were saying that the terrorists, these rotten little terrorists who took over the plane and committed this horrific crime, they took plane lessons. They wanted to know how to fly but not land.
I didn't know that.
And I just think that's bizarre.
It is bizarre, man. And that didn't throw up any red flags at all. Oh, Hakeem, I mean, why not?
Well, Reggie, nobody thought anything like this would ever happen. So nobody's thinking like this. So, nobody's was really going to point the finger or blame anybody, because this is something that had never really happened. This is like right outside of the realm of almost reality, but it happened. And a lot of a lot of lives were lost that day.
Too many lives.
And 18 people were rescued alive from the rubble of the World Trade Center site. I don't know if you knew that.
You mean people? Oh, my, 18 people? Oh, man, that's really good. But I mean, the way it sounded, nobody survived.
No, there were 18 people. They were rescued. And I don't know if you know this, cases of post-traumatic stress are common among 9/11 survivors and rescue workers.
No, I didn't know that.
They tend to have respiratory problems like asthma and lung inflammation, also developed at abnormal rates for those in and around the World Trade Center during and after the attack. So a lot of, that really traumatized a lot of people. Man,
I can't imagine, man. You can't go through something like that and not be traumatized. I mean, that's like horrible. I remember I was watching a video, and when the World Trade Center collapsed and fell down, there was like so much smoke, and people were running for their lives. I'm sure they didn't know what was going to happen. And you know what? I don't even know if that was smoke or if that was like dust or something. But yeah, you're right. You're right, Hakeem. People are sitting there and they got to breathe that stuff in. I'm sure they're going to have some medical problems, then and right down the road. You know what I mean, Hakeem?
Yes, Reggie. I do know what you mean. And that's what the whole thing is about, because, people can be traumatized. In fact, a lot of people who witnessed the World Trade Center, they were traumatized.
I believe it.
When this was on the news on 9/11,
yeah,
and they were showing live clips, people, when the airplanes hit the buildings, the building was on fire. There was a huge hole, and there were people above where the hole was, made the impact in the building, and the building was on fire, and people were trapped up there.
Oh my God, that's terrible. What were they doing?
They were calling their loved ones on their phones, saying goodbye, saying how much they loved them, knowing that they weren't going to make it home, because they knew the the impact of what happened. But then there were other people, who unfortunately things happen on the videos.
Like what? What happened?
Well, when the building was burning and a lot of people were jumping out of the buildings from the top floor, and of course they didn't survive. And this was being seen on TV, and a lot of people who watched that were traumatized. And I can't imagine people who were there. I mean, people were on fire. This was such a horrible day. Nobody ever thought anything like this would ever happen. I mean, when you see the videos of the past, I just can't imagine. I just can't even imagine being there on that day, seeing something like this, and knowing what happened.
Well, what about the president? What happened with the president?
Well, the president, he was in a classroom with a bunch of kids. I guess they were reading books or something. And when the president heard what happened, let's be honest. Even a president is never prepared for something like this. This is like unbelievable. So I guess he didn't want to panic the kids. He sat there, but the Secret Service ended up rushing him out. And then, he did what presidents do. I guess they assess the situation. They coordinate with the military. They try to get intelligence to see exactly who might be responsible. They get the manifest of the people who were on the plane. But, to be honest, I mean, being a president is a tough job. And for what happened, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to have to give the president kudos and say, he did a good job, because nobody is ever prepared for something like that. But let me give you the last fact about 9/11.
Okay.
One of them. Because, there's a lot of facts, but we're just mentioning 11 of them. You know what I mean?
Of course I know what you mean. Why you got to keep saying that? I thought we could go through one show without you trying to down me.
Reggie, I'm not trying to down you. I'm just trying to tell you what's going on. I think you take things personal.
Yo, man, I don't take things personal. Just get on with what you're saying.
Okay. In 2019, the U.S. Senate passed a bill ensuring that a fund to compensate victims of the September 11th attacks never runs out of money, and that the first responders won't have to return to Congress to plead for more funding. That's a good thing, don't you think, Reggie?
Of course, Hakeem, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a really good thing. Nobody wants to be tied up in court going back for money knowing that they got some kind of medical problems and they got to go back and forth. Man, that's like a waste of time when people make people go back for something like that,
Yeah, you're right. One thing did happen out of 9/11, the Homeland Security. You see, the Department of Homeland Security was created in response to September 11th. It merges 22 governmental agencies into one.
Man, that's a lot of agencies.
Including the Customs Service, the Immigrations and Naturalization Service, the U.S. Coast Guard, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So this is a good thing. When you got everybody working together, in one department, it's good because everybody's on the same page. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know what you mean, Hakeem. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome, Reggie. So March 12th, 2002, the Homeland Security Advisory System was introduced. And, that's a really good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing because I know for the longest time the government, from what I heard, they were trying to get something like Homeland Security to secure the whole nation. So, I suppose getting that together is really good. You know what I mean?
There is something. Time Magazine, they publish magazines and they do historical magazines. But Time Magazine's published Beyond 9/11, Portraits of Resilience. Now, this was a photo-rich commemorative edition dedicated to the 10th anniversary of the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks.
Well, why are you telling me this? What does a magazine got to do with this? I think it's good they do 9/11 stuff and historical stuff, but where are we headed with this?
Well, one thing I wanted to say was no identifiable African Americans are pictured in its 64 pages.
Say what?
Yeah, that's right. People were asking about the omission of African Americans, and Time spokesman Carrie Chica said by email. Didn't tell them in person, but this was all done by email. It said time is declined to comment at this time.
You gotta be kidding me. Are you telling me that this magazine, I mean, I know Time Magazine, that's like a famous magazine. They do, I'm thinking now, they do a lot of stuff. You mean they dissed African Americans in those pages like that? You think they did it on purpose?
Well, Reggie, I don't know if they did it on purpose. I can't get into what they do, how they do it, or when they do it. I'm just here to tell you, this was a big issue about 9/11. And it just came across our paperwork because someone sent this in to us. And they said, would you comment on this? So, we're commenting on it. We don't know a whole lot about it, but, we're giving you information about it. And like we said, Time declined to comment at that time. The issue was published at a time in its history when the magazine apparently has had no African American editors. And there certainly are African Americans on Time's masthead. Spokeswoman Ali Zelenko told journalism's by email again, never in person. All this was done by email. However, she did not respond when asked to name them. So, they didn't really say who, what black people worked for him or anything like that.
I'd like some answers.
But, but we wanted to respond to that email we got to mention this.
Yo, but Hakeem, isn't there a memorial in DC?
Yes, Reggie.
Yeah, that's what I thought. We should be talking about something like that because I'm sure a lot of people would like to know about it, where it's from, and a whole bunch of stuff like that. Why don't you tell us about that, Hakeem, okay?
The memorial, the 9/11 memorial, it's a tribute of remembrance honoring the 2,977 people killed in the terror attacks of September 11th, 2001 at the World Trade Center site near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and at the Pentagon, as well as 6 people killed in the World Trade Center bombings on February 26, 1993.
Yo, I'm glad they're remembering, the one that happened in 1993 because, you did mention how 6 people were killed in the World Trade Center bombing, and I didn't know that happened, February 26, 1993. But, I'm really glad that we're doing a podcast like this because I think it's really, really good that people remember what happened because we don't want history to repeat itself. Like everybody else, we want to be safe. We want to have a safe world. And I want to be safe. You know what I mean, Hakeem?
Yes, Reggie. I know what you mean. 9/11, I can definitely say, Reggie, opened up a lot of people's eyes. We had to step up our security in the United States.
We sure did.
We had to step up our security when it came to transportation in the world, like trains and airports. And that's why we have the TSA. And the TSA are highly trained people who make sure that when you're getting your baggage through customs or getting your baggage through the areas to go on a plane, that there aren't any weapons or anything that can harm other people on board. I mean, everybody wants to be safe when they travel, especially on a plane. It's very scary for some people when they want to travel by plane.
I know what you mean because I definitely don't like to travel by airplane. Personally, I think it's scary to be way up in the sky like that.
Well, Reggie, I'm going to tell you, you're not alone. A lot of people don't like to fly, but a lot of people definitely do like to be safe too. So, the TSA is a very good thing. But one other thing is they also beefed up all the federal agencies too. So you have to be screened when you go into federal buildings and, like we said, airports. And it's a good thing. So some good came out of 9/11 as well as a lot of awareness.
Well, that's good.
And that will bring us to, you know what I'm going to say, Reggie?
Yeah, man. It's going to bring us to your words of wisdom. So get on with it.
Okay. Here are my words of wisdom. They say that we can learn from history, but can history learn from us? History has a long lineage of war and terrorism. There is hate and fear amid the pages of the past when it comes to war and conflict. Each generation seems to be touched by horrors of the poor decisions of the past. Horrors like World War I, World War II and the Nazis, the Korean War, Hiroshima, the Gulf War, and so many others. And recently the World Trade Center that we call 9/11. Will there ever be a time when a generation will say there was peace, progress, and prosperity? Will there ever be a generation that says war and terror is not what we want the future to be? We want the future to be peace and love. But what will it take? What will be the spark that ignites the evolution of spiritual awakening to a better tomorrow? I have heard so much about 9/11 and would never want to see that kind of horror again, not here or anywhere in the world. They say that I'm an optimist. They say that I am a dreamer. I say I'm not alone, for there are many others out there in the world who believe what I believe. I say that I am the voice of a new generation that wants to evolve to a better time. Let's leave the horrors of the past in the past. Let's teach the world that a handshake and a smile goes a long way. Let us make the world a better place so when we wake up in the morning, we can look upon the world and see a united world in peace and a future we can be proud of. Let us take the first step, because never again do we ever want to see a 9/11.
Thank you, Hakeem, for that. That was really beautiful.
Well, I also want to thank Azadoria Ray. She wrote in and said we should do a podcast on 9/11. And so we're giving you a shout out, Azadoria Ray. Thank you for the topic. And if anybody else wants us to talk about something, just send it right in and we will. We'll do our best to do it.
Before we leave, Hakeem, I do want to say something.
I thought you would because you look really antsy over there. So go on with it, Reggie.
You know, I'm going to let that slide. That's like a slide remark you just did. And I know there's something you're trying to say, but I'm just going to ignore it and just get on with what I was going to say.
Okay. Don't let me stop you. Go on.
I do really appreciate and thank everybody who emails us and gives us topics for shows, because we go through a whole lot of them and we wonder what we should do. But, you know, the topics you guys send us are absolutely outstanding, and it helps us create the show. And it is because of you that we are as popular as we are internationally all around the world.
Yes, Reggie, it is. It's because of our audience and because they love our topics. And I guess we both work together. That's really good. I love working with you, brother. It's really, really a great experience.
I love working with you too, Hakeem. And I'll tell you, I never would have thought our lives would have been like this, you know, a couple years ago. You and me doing a podcast where everybody listens and they love what we do. I really love what I do. Do you like what you do?
Yes, Reggie. I really like doing the podcast. I like talking to the world.
Okay, I guess now we can end it then, right? Okay.
So, I want to thank you for spending time with us. We will see you next time on Pop City Culture. Until then, be kind and affectionate to one another. Remember who you are. Peace.